Good evening. My name is Charles X. White with Charity Productions, and we are glad that you have joined us again this evening for Community Views and Solutions. Today I have a couple of veteran tigers, dynamiters, and just general scholars with me. We have Mr. Jim Scarborough from the East-West Coalition, Transit Coalition, and Mr. Paul Magaziner, who you all seen with us before, and he's a businessman on the west side. We are going to be talking about Metro, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, the big bully on the block, the ones that comes through our neighborhoods with reckless abandon and a bag full of denials. So we want you to sit back today, listen at what we have to say, and if you have a comment, question, or a complaint, maybe you may even have some praise for Metro, just give us a call at 713-807-1794. 713-807-1794. Now we're going to start to open the discussion with why are we here and what got us here and what do we want to convey to you, the audience. Generally, we want to convey that there's a problem at Metro that's costing the taxpayers a lot of money. And you have 3, 4 different groups across the city, maybe 5, that are experiencing it, and the general public is really not aware of it. My experiences comes from the Martin Luther King area, and I was asked to join this project by Ralph and Dee Simon, who started Corridors United. And when I got involved, I also met Paul Magaziner, who was a part of it from the West Side Coalition, Transit, the angry businessmen on Richmond. So one of the things that was amazing to me in the documents and the thousands of pages of documents that we had to review is that we ran across a statement that said that Metro was supposed to do a traffic mitigation study on Martin Luther King before they laid any concrete, any rail. And then we found a memo, and Paul, you may help me with my wording, but to the extent Metro's response to the mandatory mitigation study was, we'll get to it once we put the rail in. That's what we experienced. Now the current energy in this coalition is focusing on South Post Oak. Is it South Post Oak or just Post Oak?
Post Oak Boulevard.
Post Oak Boulevard, that's right. But anyway, on Post Oak Boulevard, Metro is trying to bring a dedicated bus line, down Post Oak. So, and here walks in Jim Scarborough. I call him Mr. Nitroglycerin. So Jim is going to explain to the audience some of the things that they're experiencing as businessmen and how their interaction with Metro is just unreasonable. Jim Scarborough, give the audience an idea of what's going on Post Oak.
Charles, 2 years ago, I had no idea. Paul had been telling me about all of this stuff, but I'm just a regular business guy, citizen, and going about my merry way, you know. And then about a year and a half ago, I started getting a civics lesson. Mm-hmm. And that civics lesson, and this will be helpful for anybody listening or watching, is that the city of Houston controls everything. The mayor and city council control Metro, they control TERS, they control waste, they control water, they control your life. That's one person and one city council. And what I found out from there is they have these, I call them secret organizations, called management districts and TIRZ, T-I-R-Z, tax incremental reinvestment zones. They're appointed people, and they're appointed by the mayor and city council, and they have incredible amount of power. And we could not believe that we woke up one day to find out that our property was going to be taken from us by Metro and their gang, the Uptown Management District and the City of Houston. They're all lumped in together. And I'll refer to them for this conversation as Metro, even though the City of Houston is the one that controls it. We found out that they had gone to City Council, they got all of these approvals, didn't really notify anybody. Nobody knew about it. The business people did not know about it. So they're going to put a dedicated bus lane, tear up Post Oak Boulevard, one of the most valuable streets in the City of Houston for tax revenue, employees. They employ thousands of people there. We're going to tear that road up and put dedicated bus lanes from nowhere to nowhere in there. And it was going to benefit, we found out, it was going to benefit a very few people, very few. The people that made the decisions, the Metro-related people that made the decisions, were going to make millions of dollars out of this individually. And they could not come up. We finally wanted to know why they were doing it, and we got an internal memo from Metro, just like you and Paul did, that said, this was a year ago, Metro was even questioning themselves these commuter systems that run from out in the suburbs to Uptown. And Metro said themselves in the email that 6 out of the 7 had been discontinued due to low ridership. Nobody was taking these buses to Uptown, even though they were going directly from transit centers directly into Uptown. They weren't taking them, so they discontinued them. So why would you plan a $200 to $300 million project that had no ridership and no chance of any ridership? They've been trying this for over 10 years. So we kept questioning, and finally, and to make it, a little bit shorter where we can talk more, and then I can come back and answer any of the questions. So we have no ridership. We have people making money individually off of it, and the public not informed about it. All right, and then on top of everything, it came to a point where I and the Cosmopolitan High-Rise Association had to sue Metro. We did. We sued Metro in June of 2015 for other reasons that we won't go into, but about that project. And then just by a stroke of luck, I wasn't even luck, we discovered through taxpayer request, Freedom of Information Act, that Metro had hired a lobbyist to approach the judge in our case, and the judge had to recuse herself. They paid this guy $10,000 a month and to go into the judicial system. So if Metro has got the nerve to even enter into the judicial system of this city, what else are they willing to do? So that's why I got involved, and this is a recent event, and you'll hear much about it. It was all announced on Channel 13. Channel 13 had a show about it last night, about the judge and Metro. Metro chairman tried to blow it off like it wasn't any big deal. Well, it was a big deal. The judge had to step down. So anyhow, that's kind of where we are as far as the Uptown, and then we're able to learn from you guys who've been in this battle a lot longer than I have, the damages done that can be done by Metro.
Well, Paul, let's pick up with you, and maybe if you will kind of bring them up to date with the Title VI complaint, the federal transit discrimination complaint that we filed.
I'll go into that in just a second.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to where.
Let me get a phone line. People, would you give us a call if you have a question, comment? 713-807-1794.
Charles, as you stated earlier, I've been in the game since 2006 and 2007, and I joined up with Ralph and Dee Simon. Ralph passed. I was basically his wingman, and they live off of MLK, and I was on Richmond Avenue, and I decided it would be better to fight as a group than as an individual. I think I heard for the first time the word NIMBY, not in my backyard, which is exactly how I started the fight. They were going to affect a piece of real estate that was very important to my family, and I got involved. And I think early on, I was at a Metro building and speaking against the Richmond project, which also was going to involve Wheeler Street, the east side as well. Richmond's, it's a long lineman. And an African-American woman came up to me. She looked like my mother. She's 81 years old at that time. And she said, you know, you're out speaking for me, and I didn't even know that we didn't even know what was going to happen to us. And it's pretty empowering when you see that you can help other people. But going back to Jim, on Post Oak, it's a lot different what's happened on Post Oak than what happened, unfortunately, on North Main or MLK or even on Harrisburg. The folks on the Post Oak line are business people. They're used to studying numbers. Jim, when you started getting all the numbers, the subsidies, you were talking about the park and ride lots, bringing buses into Uptown. And y'all uncovered, and y'all showed me, an internal Metro email that stated that Metro's been trying to do that since 1985, that it's failed 6 out of 7 times. And this was in the year 2014. And the subsidy to bring in park and ride riders from the Katy Freeway, Kingsland, to Uptown, there were only 200 people that did it. And it cost taxpayers, Charles, $39 every time somebody got on board. And so my complaint was, we need these monies spent wisely. They're tax dollars. We need them in low income, minority areas. So, and Jim, y'all additionally found out, how many riders did Metro, the ridership model, say that they were going to bring? They were going to start this thing in 2017. Do you remember the number?
Yeah, I do, Paul. It was, keep in mind, it was less than 200 now, and they projected, after they put this system in using their numbers, 14,100 riders a day.
And so,
as opposed to 200.
That's calculus, isn't it?
That's magic.
well, let me tell you where the magic is. Metro started park and rides, which basically brings people in from the suburbs into downtown or other business districts, in 1981. So they've been operating it for basically 30 years. There are, after 30 years and 29 park and ride lots, and they're building more, only 16,000 riders citywide. And they're telling the businessmen on Post Oak, we're going to have 14,000 from day one. It's hocus pocus numbers. The ridership models are completely broken. So besides taking valuable property away from the retail, they lose a lot of parking places to this. It's basically, the bus guideways are a precursor to light rail.
Correct.
It's the exact same footprint.
Exactly.
You start with the bus and then you go to the rail. What did you discover? We're going to be talking about the new bus network, but which has just now started. But in terms of the Post Oak 33, that was the existing bus line. And what Metro is doing, is bus service better or worse under the new bus network on Post Oak, in your opinion?
Absolutely worse. The majority of the riders on Post Oak bus line 33 were able to go nonstop from from all the way from Hiram Clark up to the Bel Air Transit Center. Now they were forced to, where they could take that directly, they now have to transfer off of that bus, wait for another bus at the Bel Air Transit Center, then go down to the Post Oak area. So from that standpoint, and then some of them have to go all the way to the Northwest Transit Center and get on another bus to go wherever they were going to go from there. So
they're having to transfer where before it was a one-seat ride.
One-seat ride, which is what, if anybody wants to take an airplane ride, the first thing they look at is a nonstop.
Yes.
If you're going to take a bus, which if you have to take a bus, you want it nonstop if at all possible. They eliminated that.
So what the Uptown plan, the Uptown Development Plan, that's the TERS, the management, and Metro, is for people to go to a park and ride, park their vehicle, get on a bus. That bus is then going to stop at another park and ride, pick up more riders. Then it's going to go to a transit center. So you've got 2 stops, and then at the transit center, they've got to change buses to a special bus that's cost $1 million to get to Uptown. And then they're let off in the middle of the street, quarter of a mile from their employment, and they think that plan will work. People will tie a coat, high heels, are going to go park their car, walk to a bus, get on, go to another bus stop, go to another bus stop, transfer, and then get to Uptown. That's the plan?
That's the plan, and in the 2 years that I've been involved in this, the only people that I found that are in favor of this or think this can work is Metro and the Uptown TERS and the mayor of the city of Houston. Now that's all it takes to do it, because once again, the mayor can do whatever he or she wants to do. But that is the plan. And I need to put this in real quick because this is important for everybody to listen to, Charles, is that this is being financed with taxpayer money.
Right.
Any way you look at it. And we're talking, nobody can tell you the real numbers, but the minimum number is $200 million. Okay, $200 million.
A lot of money.
Other numbers go up to high as $350, $400 million for this Post Oak Boulevard. That what could $200, $300, $400 million, $50 million do to the city of Houston where it needs to be spent? The Post Oak people, and I'm one of them, very grateful to be the opportunities I've had to be privileged in that category. I don't need it, but I don't have any say-so in it.
Yeah, well, yeah, because we could use some new bus stops, bus covers, lighting. Just clean the bus station that's already there. So definitely 50 million, whatever million, would do. So Paul, what about the I guess the new old Title VI that's about to be filed?
Well, we're...
and you had something that we were talking off camera about the ridership is going down.
Right, that's with the new bus network. We just got some numbers in, and on this new bus network, which is basically a new grid system, Metro put this brochure out in July, and basically every single existing bus line, they went through all of them. They either had significant changes, or they might call them moderate changes, but they were not moderate. They were very significant, and minor changes. They've thrown the old Metro bus routes out the window. And we started going to City Council the moment they started this project, saying Metro was going to create a transit desert. We warned the mayor.
Yep.
And like Jim said, the only person that really counts in this town is the mayor. That's it. And basically this transit desert has now been set up. And it's been fascinating to me to watch it. The truth is, we were ready, the community breakfast, myself, some of your other experts, we were ready to go to war on the new bus network,
Yep.
on ADA compliance,
Yep.
on the fact that there weren't enough shelters, that the fleet was old, the buses were broken. We wanted to talk about discriminatory capital projects, and it took you, with all of your means, 9 months, a year to set up a meeting, which was set up when? December 2014?
December, I think it was February.
No, it was in December.
Was it December?
2014.
14.
And you took your group in, and I was
yeah.
one of them.
Yeah.
And we had 3 civil rights lawyers with us.
Oh, yeah.
And you told them you were going to video the meeting?
Oh, it was in the emails.
It's in the
It was
emails.
in the emails 2 months in advance. And matter of fact, not only was it in the original email, it was in a subsequent email and a conversation with the staff person.
So you gave them a list of subjects.
That's correct.
And we went in 20 minutes early, 30 minutes early, and we set up piles of paper in front of us, and we were going to go through it with the top Metro staff, which included this Bus Reimagined, included Uptown.
Yeah.
We wanted to discuss all the numbers with Uptown. We wanted to discuss the ridership models. We wanted to discuss ADA compliant, because they're not compliant. What happened?
American Disability Act, ADA.
Right. What happened, Charles, that day?
Well,
We're there.
The picture is there were roughly 10, 11 of us, and we walk in, and we walk in with a camera. We want videotape. And so I started setting up the camera, and one of the staff persons said, "No cameras. No cameras. No cameras." I said, "What do you mean, no cameras?" No cameras. So I said, I said, "What policy are you following to say no cameras?" The staff person went and got the next highest person that worked for the CEO. So he came down and said, no cameras, Charles, no cameras. I said, "What policy are you trying to follow? Are you saying about, there is no policy. We don't want no cameras." So this went on for about 15 minutes. You know, we were haggling about cameras or no cameras, and a discussion with the group and a discussion back to them. We ultimately decided, for the good to carry on the meeting, no cameras. But in that negotiation, we also offered for Metro to video the meeting. And they declined to even video the meeting themselves, because we want to document. We know how much they can twist the facts. So anyway, we were about to start the meeting with a room full of staffers with our subject matter experts, and it's called, Paul said, there were some civil rights attorneys there. And then the chief walks in, Chief Lambert walks in, "No meeting. No meeting, I'm canceling the meeting." Now, I've known the chief for 30 years. I've done training for Metro Police. I've done programs with Metro's Public Relations Department for years, going back to the mid-'80s. And he comes down with that John Wayne, "I'm stopping the meeting," wouldn't listen. And when I tried to inform him that we had agreed not to have camera, he turns to me, "No talking, Charles. I'm through talking." I'm trying to explain, "Chief, we don't have no cameras." So I told him to get out the room, leave. So I mean, that was the essence of that. But not only when we set it up, it was roughly 2 years before they even gave us that meeting. And the other part of it was, we were using their data. We didn't manufacture any new information. It was their data. When Metro, just like HISD, had in-house audits, and the in-house audits are skewed. It's skewed for what they want to do. But when you got on the case, and the other folks got on the case, primarily you, Paul, with the numbers crunching, they just shut down on meeting to discuss the inadequacies, and the figures didn't add up that they were presenting to the public.
And you've subsequently tried to get that same meeting again?
As most recently as this week.
And
Gilbert Garcia, the chairman, said, "Well, there'll be a new chairman soon, so I have no further comment."
Well, 2 things happened to me that day that were pretty interesting. Number one, I had spent about a week of my time preparing.
Correct.
Having everything in order. And my time's fairly valuable. And the subject...
Paul, looks like we have is that a blinker? We have a caller? Okay, let's see what the caller, let's see about the caller. All right, caller, how you doing? What's your name?
Emmett Abati Doe.
Okay, and what's your comment or question?
I have a couple of comments real quick. First of all, the Doe and Associates Metropolitan Transit Authority Community Impact Report was the only study done prior to the creation of Metro, and it predicted the exact circumstances that you're experiencing now, and nobody paid any attention to it.
What was the name of that study?
The Doe and Associates Metropolitan Transit Authority Community Impact Report that I authored. And it was done with a grant from Mario Silva. And the second comment I'd like to make is that Metro needs to use some of those millions of dollars to install public restrooms it is a disgrace that human beings are denied the opportunity to function as human beings because there are no public restrooms available for them to relieve themselves, which is a health issue and other concerns that should be addressed. And I would like for you gentlemen to put public restrooms on the list of things that Metro needs to spend money for.
Well, thank you, caller. You have any other closing comments?
Now, the community study will be available as a Kindle within the next couple of weeks. People need to review that because it laid out the Rice Study Growth Options Report, which was a farce. And you talk about cooking numbers. They created a false entity called the Rice Study Growth Options Report, which was not even a Rice-based organization, that presented a very glowing report and projection of what Metro was going to be able to do for the community. And again, it is a boondoggle for real estate interest, locking in land use patterns for the next 100 years. That's what's going on. It has nothing to do with moving people where they need and want to go. And I commend you, gentlemen. Stay with it. You're on the right track.
Hey, could you give us the name of that study one more time?
The Doe and Associates Metropolitan Transit Authority Community Impact Report.
Dole Associates.
DOE.
Charles, I'd like to follow up on what the
Okay,
gentleman...
thank you.
Thank you for calling. I'd like to follow up on what the gentleman just said, and then I'm going to go back to our canceled meeting. In the last few years, I've coined what's going on the money go round. And that's what this gentleman's referring to. And there's a bunch of insiders, and their only concern is the money going round, keep coming round and round to them. And I saw an article, well, it's not an article, it's one of my favorite bloggers in Houston, a guy named Corey Crow. And some of these bloggers are just classic. What's happening in Houston is happening in Portland, Oregon, and Seattle. It's happening all over. We're not unique. But basically, it's the urban planners. It's what they call smart growth. And this is what Corey wrote actually this month. In new urbanist language, there are things that are good, mass transit, density, local control, and that's when their inner city suburban modeled neighborhoods are threatened, and things that are bad. Bad are subsidies to provide low-cost housing to poor, predominantly minority families in up-and-coming areas. Good is a mobility project that emphasizes mass transit, bikes, and walking. And this is what the rail is all about. And this is what the financial interests want to see rail built. They want to see capital projects that are not really doing the good for the people that really need it. And the people that need it are the transit dependent. Not necessarily, the park and rides are wonderful. People in the suburbs, they come in. And what they were doing for uptown is they were thinking uptown and downtown are the same. You know, at one point, 37% of the people that worked in downtown used Metro. It's down to 28% in the last 4 or 5 years. And this, but the differences between downtown and Post Oak Boulevard are great. One, Post Oak is a lot closer to the western suburbs, whether it's southwest or west. Number two, and most important, parking rates. Parking downtown is a fortune. Parking for employees is free. In 2015 and 16, miles per gallon on a car is getting better and better and better. Do people really want to give up their mobility once their parking place is free? Do they want to go park their car, get on a bus, stop a couple times, and have to get on another bus, or are they going to get in their car? Another thing that's different about Post Oak is not downtown. Downtown goes to work at 7 a.m., 6:30, 6:45, 7:30. It's a 7 to 5. Post Oak is all different hours. You've got the hospitality industry, you've got the retail industry. It's a completely different model. But basically what's driving this is redevelopment, it is urbanism, it's all about the money, and that's I thought that the last Metro board was horrible. And so did the new Metro board that got installed in May 2010 under Mayor Parker when she came in. As a matter of fact, they thought Metro was so bad, they hung a new title on themselves. We're the new Metro. Well, new Metro is not only 10 times worse than old Metro because of Reimagine and other discriminatory projects. They've thrown low income and communities in dire need of transit via this new bus network under the bus, Charles. And that's what I'm here fighting.
Well, I've even received a couple of calls about, especially at our North Side meetings, where one of the workers said that it takes her an hour and a half longer with the new bus system, and she goes from one bus, now she has to have 3 buses. And it puts her at work earlier and gets her home later. So those are the kinds of things that Metro was warned against. Paul, you remember the meeting at Kashmere? And all of the people that came to the meeting to explain, and former drivers and current drivers of Metro, explained to Metro and showed Metro that their maps were incorrect. Now here's a 30-year bus driver showing you the route that you have, the model that you put on the computer, that you drew up on the computer. Doesn't work.
That particular bus driver was one of my heroes. As a matter of fact, I went to a meeting prior to that just to meet that man. And he had gone before the Metro board 4 or 5 times, and I watched it on the computer online. And he said, what y'all are going to do is not going to work. I've been doing this a long time. Wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah.
And about the first time he was there, one of the Metro board members, after listening to him, said, you're ridiculous. He put him down. I absolutely couldn't believe it. But I'd like to just dig in on that for just a minute. This is a 500-page report that we've gone through. And I asked the FTA in Fort Worth and in Washington, D.C., do y'all have this? The answer is no. Here's an internal report. It's called the Title VI.
What is a Title VI?
They're studying whether or not they're placing inherently bad situations on low income and minority communities.
Okay.
And this report says they're not. And it's full of bull. It's full of bull. Let me tell you what they did in this report.
Well, let me add this about the Title VI. It's also a compliance with the federal government that if you're receiving public dollars, that you have to provide certain services for low to moderate income people or riders. And what if you look at some of the bus shelters, there's a design, for an example, in Sunnyside, there's a design that they showed us. They came out and said, this is what's going to be built right here. So in the design, there's a space for a wheelchair. In the actual one that's put up, it's just a bench straight across, no space for a wheelchair. Not only that, excuse me, there's no way for a wheelchair to get, there's no wheelchair access from the street. And that's the ADA compliance, American Disabilities Act compliance that we're speaking of. And as the caller mentioned, the restroom facilities. So that's part of all of that. When you have a complaint with a federal agency, you have to fill out the Title VI form.
What Metro has ended up doing, and what this report told me, is they calculated 500 trips. They studied 500 trips. And the way they studied them is they used peak headway times. In other words, when the bus was most frequent, no matter where it was. And peak headway is about 4 hours a day out of a 15, 16, 17-hour day. What Metro should have done is studied their reimagined system under base headways. What is the norm? Not when you have the most service, but what is the norm? They've basically, through the process, the procurement, getting the engineer, creating this thing, they've shifted financial resources away from minority and low income, and they've added service to streets like Westheimer. But here's the problem with even the added service. 8-minute headways on Westheimer are impossible to meet. The buses, there's not going to be a bus, and what you'll see when you're driving down the street is 2 buses together. There was a traffic problem, there's this. So this thing is full of hot air, and they're not able to meet their schedule. You talked about, I have one employee, she used to get home at 7, averaging 7:15, 7:20. She's 9 o'clock at night. She's starting to work earlier, and she's getting, and it's due to the transfers. It's due to the fact, and she says to me, Paul, you can't get anywhere. And she can't get anywhere direct. The Fondren bus line, which was the most popular bus line, more ridership on that has been broken down. They've taken out redundancy. Westheimer used to have 3 buses, it's only got 1 bus line. And that 1 bus line, the 82, can't meet the headways. So what's happened, they said in this report that, and their numbers, 61% of the people are going to get better service. First of all, that's not true. 34% is going to get worse. Now let me ask you a question. Would you start something where 34% of the people are going to get worse? That's what's in this document. And so, going back to the meeting that was canceled, and Title VI, you asked me. 2 things happened to me when I came out of that meeting. The civil rights professional, we were downstairs trying to figure out why we weren't in the meeting, and one of the professional lawyers said to me, that is a hostile environment upstairs. And they were right. When I walked out the door, I realized that we weren't going to be able to stop Uptown. We were not going to be able to stop Reimagine. They did not want to listen. And so we've met with them. We've sent them document after document. So we are going to file another Title VI, except we're going to do it the Charles White way. We're going to file one with the federal government.
Yeah.
And we collected signatures for that this morning. The second we're going to file with the Justice Department, discrimination, patterns and practices.
Yeah, oh, that's the one.
We need the feds to come in and take a look, because since 2004, all Metro has really done is reduced local bus service. And the only thing good about Reimagine is they've increased service on Saturdays and Sundays. They did not need to do that. The project that Jim is fighting is $125 million over 7 or 8 years. That's how much Metro's...
That's just
that's
Metro's
Metro's
share.
money.
That's
That's
not
Metro's
that's
share.
not other taxpayers.
Well, we need that money to get more and better and newer buses and bus shelters in the northeast, east, and the southeast part of Houston. We need to spend the money wisely. So we are going to be filing that Title VI. I would guess that it's going to be somewhere around November 10th or 12th. We're going to ship it off to both the Justice Department and the FTA. And then the other thing that we're going to do, and I warned the Metro Board about this, is I believe that they violated their own procurement policy in order to do Reimagine. The evaluation committee for choosing the engineer, we ended up with they're a good engineering firm, local. They do traffic studies. They've never done a Reimagine, never once. How'd they get this contract? Jim, would you have brain surgery with a surgeon that had never done brain surgery?
No, Paul, I would not.
No. Well, that's what happened. And on top of that, we ended up with a consultant from Portland, Oregon. Metro paid him $220,000. Is the weather in Houston and the weather in Portland similar?
Well, it's got a daytime and a nighttime.
Well, what happens in this book, and by the way, these are emails and things that came out of the procurement, evaluation forms, everything, is Metro invited stakeholders to a meeting. They chose the stakeholder, your TERS, your management, not bus riders. Had 1 or 2 bus riders, had 1 or 2 or 3 bus drivers. but 95% of it was made up of people that don't ride the bus. And during that pitch, they basically sold them the fact that we need to shift the services out of the Northeast and the East and the Southeast, and we need to go to more denser populated areas. And the other thing they did is walkability. The standard in the world, global, for walkability to transit is 1/4 of a mile. But in order to pull off Reimagine, it's 1/2 mile so that they can make certain claims. And so in the last 2 Metro board meetings, I'm listening to about 50 people speak. And they were from all different bus lines, so the new bus network, with complaints being it's taking a lot longer. Each one of those speakers, in my eyes, represents 300 or 400 or 500 people. This thing has changed the life of 30 or 40,000, 50,000 transit-dependent people. And that's why it's important. It's important that the next mayor, the mayoral election, what's going on, realize exactly what's been done, because in Metro's eyes, this thing is in concrete. It's a 5-year plan. We're going to keep adjusting it. And I'm telling you, poor people that are transit dependent, they don't have 5 years to see something better.
Paul, I think you quoted some numbers to me this morning. I can't quite remember them. You know, we judge success and failures of things sometimes by numbers. Did you just got a hold of the new numbers on ridership for this new program, and that they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars developing and advertising?
The real purpose of the new bus network is to add boardings to the trains. The buses aren't going to go to downtown. They're going to drop you off. They're going to force you to get on a train.
Wait a minute.
It's about
Say that one more time.
the real purpose behind all of this is you had 2 new rail lines opening. The money go round wants more rail lines, and what they need to do is they need to get the boardings numbers up. Every time you get on a bus, it counts as a boarding. So if I have to take 3 buses on a one-way trip, that counts as 3 boardings. So what they're doing, like the 53 Briar Forest bus, you used to catch it downtown. It was the fastest way to get to Greenway Plaza and the Galleria, and then going further out west to Briar Forest. They eliminated that. So the folks that were used to using that to get to Greenway to go to work or to get to the Galleria now have to ride the train. They get off, they have to ride a bus. It's about boardings. It's about bogus numbers.
Well, let me ask you this. So, let me see if I have it right. Metro is forcing people to ride the bus. They're eliminating bus service to force people to ride the bus to a specific location that deals with rail. To increase, that's one method of increasing boardings, by forcing everybody into a channel where they have to ride the bus. Have to ride rail.
And they don't care that it's costing those riders their time, all these transfers.
Well,
they
on
don't
the money.
care.
Oh, what about the money?
Well,
The ticket.
the first Title VI that I filed under the Community Breakfast and Corridors United, and this complaint still goes on. We have antiquated fare box systems on the bus. It's a closed system. It'll take the transit Q card. It will not take cash. Starting in the year 2009, Metro changed their fare policy, F-A-R-E policy, their policy, and that if you were a cash-paying customer, you no longer got a free transfer on a one-way ride. We figure that Metro's been spilling $250,000 a month since 2009, $3 million a year in people's milk money due to that policy. We've been begging, and we filed a Title VI on it. We have begged the Metro board, please buy new fare box equipment for the 1,200 buses. It's $5.5 million. That will take a Q card, that will take a Visa or a MasterCard, or it will take cash and automatically distribute a transfer receipt. I've done this. I've talked to the board face to face 3 or 4 times. I've sent them 35 emails. They won't even consider it. So what they did do, Charles, 3 months ago is they came up with a pilot paper transfer. In other words, if you know to ask the bus driver, they'll give you a transfer.
If you know to ask the
There's
bus
no signs up, and in fact, I'm getting word from the bus riders that call me that bus drivers have been instructed, do not tell people that they can get a transfer.
Wait, let me hold that point. Now, on Post Oak, it seems that I remember when we had the press conference over there at Masra, did I hear someone say that you all did a traffic study? Metro said that their traffic study showed that it was traffic congestion on Post Oak, and you all had another study done that showed there was no congestion on Post Oak at the time. Metro was claiming that this was part of their justification for wanting a dedicated bus route. And earlier you said it went from point nowhere to nowhere. Like, what ends of Post Oak?
Well, what they're talking about is running the project, and I know where Paul was going to. They're running the project from the Northwest Transit Center on I-10 down Post Oak Boulevard, or down 610, and then down Post Oak to a Bel Air Uptown Transit Center.
Oh, okay.
All right, which doesn't exist. The land hadn't even been bought, may never get built.
Actually, it was a garage for 750 cars.
And originally they had to make it look good. They said there was going to be a parking garage there for 750 cars, which, hey, that sounds pretty good. Now it's just a parking lot for less than 100. And
Bait
then
and switch.
yeah, that's that part. And Paul, do you have any evidence that the reimagine that? And I reason say this because this is what is the evidence that this is working?
I did a taxpayer request for revenues in for August 2015 and September 2015. In August, they started the new bus network on the 16th. They had 1 week of free fares, and then they had a week where they were paying. So the evidence to me was boardings is now an artificial number.
Right. Doesn't
People
mean
that had
anything.
doesn't mean anything. So now the only matrix you can look at to see if people like the new bus network or don't like it is the fare revenue. And the fare revenue for Metro in September 2015 was $6,024,154. And of that $6 million, $1,132,000 was paid in cash on the buses, 19%.
What was it in 2014?
Right, in 2014, September, it was $6.7 million. So it's down $675,000, 10%. That's a lot of riders. They're either carpooling, taking their cars, creating congestion. And so I think that this trend has started. The idea of the new bus network was to increase ridership. In fact, because of the transfers, because of the lost time, because of the walking matrix, new Metro has ruined the transit system.
In some people's lives.
And some people's lives. Some people, I'm being told, are having to move.
What about Carlos on Harrisburg?
Well, the Harrisburg people, they started rail construction on Harrisburg in the summer of 2008. It's 3¼ miles long, the total rail line. It cost over $3,000 an inch, over $600 million. Prior to them putting rail on Harrisburg, total bus revenue was less than $750,000 in 2014. They've spent $600 million all in cash. This gets back to the discriminatory capital. They told voters in '03 we're going to get federal money. There's no federal money.
And not only did they tell the voters in 203 about that, the changes, if there were any changes to what the voters approved in 2003, they had to take it back to the voters. And they didn't do that.
Probably the most upsetting thing to me is we watched this happen in the Southeast and the North and Harrisburg. And although there were groups of us, the businesses, they weren't as strong as the folks on Uptown. Harrisburg is a pittance of what it used to be. It's a complete disaster out there. There is no business. So Jim, what you're doing and the other guys on Post Oak, and you did a petition drive. We know there's 4 or 5 people for it. They're all on the TERS board. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the only people.
All right. How many people signed up against it actually own property over there? Was it 250?
Between around 250 to 300 of property owners and residents on Post Oak Boulevard.
So actually, Post Oak could become another Harrisburg if Jim and his crew did not catch it in time.
That's Charles. Let me just comment on that real quick because I know we're running out of time. That's exactly what will happen to Post Oak Boulevard, because you will create a east and west side, because you go out here to Harrisburg or you go down to Main Street, and it's retail death for retailers. They'll go off, and people are going to lose their jobs like they lost their jobs everywhere. They don't get recreated anywhere. They're lost forever.
I want to stay on that. Metro couldn't do what they do without their partner, which is the City of Houston.
Right.
The mayor runs everything. If Metro does it, then City of Houston Public Works has to bless it. We just saw an internal email that we got, I think, was it from Uptown Development or the City of Houston?
It was actually the City of Houston.
All right. And so, it was Andy Eakin. Andy Eakins was on there, and it was one of the directors at the Uptown Development.
Kendall Miller.
And what Miller was telling, Uptown Development was telling Andy Eakin is, can you believe Metro is asking us for a drawing showing that the buses can be converted to rail, and in this political climate? In other words, we don't want to put anything with Uptown Development's name on it that has rail. So what Jim and the guys are protecting against is the same thing that's happened here, splitting the street. It's like what happened to Post Oak, which to us is like not just to us, everybody in Houston. If you've got a visitor, you go to the Galleria. Post Oak is important to everybody. That's our Rodeo Drive. That's our show street.
Yeah.
We're not going to let Metro ruin it the way they've done Harrisburg or MLK or North Main.
And we don't need to be wasting money on that boulevard when that money can be going to better places in the City of Houston. Now, you have an election coming up. We're trying to inform the public that it's the mayor and city council, but mainly the mayor, and Metro is the biggest money sucker that we have around here. Everybody pays Metro. I mean, I don't care who you are. You pay Metro on your taxes, on your sales tax. So it's time to stop. It's time to get we have a chairman of Metro right now that doesn't know anything about, he's a financial guy. What in the world have you got financial guys? Because they're appointed by the mayor. They get to go to parties. They get to do all kinds of things. Anyhow.
Charles, didn't you and I and Jim go see Councilman Green? He's the head of transportation.
Yes, who heads the transportation committee for the City of Houston.
Let me talk about Councilman Green. And when we went in then, we said we need a meeting under your guys, City of Houston.
Correct.
Having Metro and us there. The same thing we tried to do with Metro Direct, the community breakfast versus Metro. And basically we were told something to the fact that the mayor or whatever probably wouldn't allow it. 1 week ago, I watched a Metro board member, Christoph Spieler, in front of the Transportation Committee talking about the new bus network. And to Councilman Green's credit, he said, I've heard it takes longer and that the transfers are a problem. Do you know what the response was?
No.
I haven't heard that.
Of course not.
I sent Councilman Green an inflammatory email that I just wish the testimony was under oath and that we need a redo of that with the community breakfast there. Guess what? Never heard back from Councilman Green.
Oh, of course not.
Of course not.
They don't want the community to have eyeballs on the process. That's why it is my conclusion that elected officials, one of their primary functions is to keep the people confused and keep the comparative analysis information out of the public view.
There's no equity in the current transportation system. There's no equity in the way capital dollars are spent in this town because of the TERS and the management. There's just no equity.
And the TERS, that's a new term for people, but get it. The TERS are all over the city, but the bulk of them, the bulk of the money goes to Memorial, goes to Uptown, Galleria, and goes to Upper Kirby, the richest part of Houston. That's where all the money is being collected and the money is being spent, and it's absolutely borderline criminal.
Midtown, it's the Galleria, it's Memorial City. And instead of those dollars flowing back into the city's coffers, they're staying there.
I think that's going to take us right up to the end of our show for today. I want to thank you, Jim and Paul, for helping us to inform the public on community views and solutions. And our topic was Metro. And if you want to get in touch with us, 713-292-3436, 713-292-3436. And again, this is a very important election, November 3rd. You can elect the mayor and city council member and HISD school board members. Please take the time to study the candidates, study the issues, Prop 2, Prop 1, Prop 4, all of the propositions, and make the best informed choice that you can make this November the 3rd, this election cycle, and you have to get ready for the next election cycle, which is in March, which is the federal election cycle. So join us again on Community Views and Solutions. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.